Thank you so much for joining us on the Dwelling Show. I've got Ted with us today. Thank you so much, Ted. I really appreciate you taking time out to be with us today.
That's my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, so Ted, obviously you're a CPA. We read a little bit about your book. Can you just kind of tell our Dwell listeners, a little bit more about yourself and kind of what you've been up to lately?
Yeah, so I am a CPA who specializes in the real estate industry. And the way I get started specializing in the real estate industry is that I became an investor myself. And I was doing my own real estate investments. I lived in South Florida at the time, and I was buying single family homes and doing some syndications with like garden apartments down there. And I started going to some of the local real estate investment club meetings and as an investor. And they found out that, hey, wait a second, you're a CPA also. And I'm like, yeah, well, what tax strategies are you using for your own business? So I started to say, yeah, well, look, these are some of the things that I'm doing. Cost segregating properties. I'm deducting, literally tracking and deducting everything, that I can related to my business. Well, would you like to come and speak to our group of investors about, what you're doing, what strategies you're using, and that sort of thing? I'm like, sure. And I had never spoken in front of a group before. No, this goes back, almost 20 years now. And the first time I did this, my knees were shaking and my throat was dry, and I had never done public speaking before. So it was, I basically was reading off of my outline. Now I do this on a regular basis. I probably do 50 or 60 speaking engagements a year, and I don't even prep for them anymore. I just, I have my base presentation in my head, and I just go in, and sometimes I just sit down and say, okay, let's answer questions. What do you guys want to talk about?
Thank you so much for that brief introduction. So before we get to your book, which has a very, very unique title, the Tax Smart Landlord. I love that. So we're going to talk about your book for sure. But I definitely want to go back on one thing that you said. So you were doing some syndications, you were investing in some single homes, and obviously then you started speaking at, meetup groups as well. And you obviously talked about some of your strategies. So if you were to say, there are a couple or a few strategies that, some of our passive investors should start considering, or even maybe folks that are maybe invested in the stock market and are thinking of coming towards the bright side, the real estate side, right? What are kind of the tax strategies that folks can start thinking about or start doing?
Well, look, unlike, your stock market investment, they're going to pay tax on the interest and the dividends that you receive. As a passive investor in a real estate syndication, the goal typically is to use the depreciation on the property to bring your taxable income down to zero, while you're still receiving the return, the cash on cash return for your investment. That would obviously, that's why real estate is such a powerful investment, is because you can use the property depreciation to bring the taxable income down to zero, while still getting while still having cash in your pocket from the investment.
Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely a big one. So if there are also, folks kind of thinking that, since you've done single families and then syndications, so if there are people thinking, well, I've been thinking of doing that, maybe I should go into, single family on my own, right? While I maybe have a day job, or invest with a syndicator, maybe somebody like myself. You've done both. What are your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, look, being on your own and investing in real estate is a tough business. It's a lot harder than a lot of people want you to believe. So you get out there and you have to have the time to look at properties. This is a very competitive environment. You're going to look at. I always tell people, if you want to do like your own single family buy a single family rental or buy a multifamily rental, buy any kind of rental property, buy any kind of flip property, you're going to probably look at a couple of hundred properties to find 5 or 6 that you can make an offer on, to find one that you're going to turn into a deal. So there's a lot of legwork that goes into buying a property that nobody ever sees. It's the old adage, it takes a long time to become an overnight success, right? Well, it takes a lot of legwork to buy a single property. So by working with a syndicator, you're working with a professional who has the time, whose job it is to be out there looking for properties, who has a set of guidelines that they use to buy, and so you're actually getting in at a professional level without having to do the legwork to buy and the management while you're holding it, which is a whole different topic.
Right. Yeah. That's definitely a good way to look at it. I really like that answer. So you definitely you were doing well. You were doing your single families, doing your syndications. Speaking at meetup groups, and obviously you're helping other investors with their taxes as well. So what made you write the book? What was kind of the problem where you were looking to solve, and why did you come up with how did you come up with that title? I think it's a really cool title.
Yeah. Well, the problem that I was trying to solve was that I had a ton of, as an investor, I always bought courses and looked at a lot of people's information, and I didn't see anything out there with the people that I was following that was written in plain English, right? Everything, you had to be an attorney, or a CPA to be able to read some of this stuff and really make sense of it, really be able to use it step by step in your business. So what I wanted to do was I created the Tax Smart Landlord to be sort of a plain English guide to, these are the strategies you should be using when you buy real estate, while you're managing real estate, and when you sell real estate. And here's how, and this kind of relates both to syndicators and to smaller investors. Here's how you keep track of all of this stuff so you're never missing any of the tax deductions. And as a syndicator, you know that if you're going to be taking other people's money for deals, you've got to have really good accounting, right? Because you want to be able to make sure that you're able to report to those folks properly, issue them their tax returns or K-1s properly, all of those things that go into being a successful syndication investor, at least from the management side. So the tax landlord was just a kind of reaction to the market, and I use it basically to help investors know what strategies they need to use, what they can deduct, what's the difference between a passive investor and an active investor and a real estate professional, all of the things that they need to know. And then it gets deeper into the actual strategies, the cost segregation, the 1031 exchanges, now opportunity zones, the qualified business income deduction, all of these things that, came about with the new tax laws.
It is a lot of things, definitely a lot of things. You got cost seg, asset abandonment, obviously 1031 exchanges. These are basically, a lot of them are, tax deferring strategies, right? So I think we can maybe, do a deep dive into maybe one, if you have a story for cost seg. Just kind of tell us, how did they, from kind of start to finish, how did it go? How successful was that case study?
Right. So let's start with a case study. I have a client who purchased a 200-unit apartment complex in Lexington, Kentucky, right? And it was pretty run down. They were going to have to do a lot of work to get it back up and running, and where they could raise the rents and stabilize the investment. Okay, so they paid $7.5 million for it. Now they have a whole bunch of passive investors in this investment, limited partnership. So they do a cost segregation study at the beginning, and they literally identify everything that they bought. Now remember, when you buy, you know this, but when your readers your listeners, when you buy a property, everything that's in it, you pay for that. So when you pay for an apartment building, $7.5 million, everything that came with it, the appliances, the lights, all the things that are in each unit, those are the things that you paid for. So when they do a cost segregation study, in this case, I had an engineering firm go out and do a cost segregation study. They identified all of those little things. They do them in pretty good detail, right? So now when you throw away those things, literally as you're gutting the apartments and redoing them, they're throwing all of those things away, and you've identified all of them. So you have an asset value, each one of those items that you threw away. So as you're throwing away appliances, as you're throwing away shelving, as you're throwing away walls, literally, if you're taking out cabinets and vanities and bathrooms. So when all was said and done, they identified $1.5 million of items from the original purchase price that they abandoned. They literally threw away when they gutted all of these 200 apartments. So now, how does that translate? Well, each one of the investors in that syndication got a piece of that $1.5 million to deduct immediately on their tax return in the year that the study was done, because asset abandonment losses are not subject to passive loss rules. So the limited partners can take those ordinary losses against their ordinary income. So it was a real benefit to each of these investors, who got about $400,000 in total savings. About 25-30% of the $1.5 million, right? Was we don't know exactly how much because everybody's got their own tax rate, but if you just kind of estimate, there was about $400,000 of actual tax benefit dollars saved by those passive investors.
Wow, not shabby at all, right? For a pretty good, yeah. And I did a quick calculation there. So at 7.5 million for a 200 unit, they got each unit for about 37,500 K for one door, and then knocking off that extra $1.5 million, that's even way lower than that. So that's definitely a great deal. So if I'm a dual listener and I'm thinking, well, I'm thinking of going into real estate, but I don't even know about if I should go with a syndicator, like myself, or if I should just maybe do flips, or maybe just go on my own. What is that one thing that you're going to say to that person based on your your experience and your time being a CPA, preparing all these taxes and doing cost seg studies? What is just that one thing you're going to say to that person?
Yeah, I think what I would say to that person is, how much time do you want to devote to the business? And if the answer is, hey, I've got some money, I want to be involved, but I don't necessarily want to become my full-time existence to be a property manager, then I think going with a syndicator is a great idea, because you're able to get in without the responsibility for managing the property. You don't have to find the properties. You don't have to get the properties financed. You don't have to, find tenants. You don't have to do repairs. Nobody's calling you at 5 in the morning when a toilet's clogged, right? So all of those things. Now, if you want to be a more active investor, great. Just know that there's a lot of benefits to it, but it's also a lot of work. And there's no reason why you can't be a combination of the two. That's what I am right now. I'm actually a combination to do some investing in syndications, but I also do some of my own stuff. And like, for example, right now I'm looking for a deal where I can do some sort of a development kind of transition, redo of some sort of taking an old building and turning it into apartments or something along those lines, putting together maybe my own syndication to do something like that.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah, good luck on that. Yeah, that's a very interesting project. Yeah. So, I mean, Ted, we can keep going, but we definitely dwelling into the quick rounds. But before we do that, I just kind of want to, get you to touch on your book. So just tell us a little bit about your book. Where can we get it? I think it's out, right? And just a brief synopsis on the book.
Yeah, I mean, you can get the book right on my website at www.lanzarocpa.com, and I'll spell that out for you. It's LANZAROCPA.com. You can download it for free. You can get a print version from Amazon for $14 if that's what you want to do. You can also email me, and we'll send you a copy. My email is ted@lanzarocpa.com, same spelling as the website. The book is, I get a lot of great reviews on the book. It's a book that starts with, here are some of the basic record-keeping strategies that you want to use so that you don't miss any tax deductions. Here are the things you want to do to make sure that you're not doing anything that's going to get you into legal trouble. Even as a syndicator, you want to make sure you have good record keeping. And then it goes into, here are the strategies when you are buying a property. When you buy a property, here are the strategies you need to be thinking about. When you're holding the property, here are some of the strategies you need to think about. Here's how you're deducting everything you can legally deduct. And then when you're selling, here are the strategies that are available to you to mitigate the gains on the sale. And there's a bunch of tools that go with the book that are available. And I think it's a great tool for investors of all levels. I mean, I give it away at a lot of the meetups and stuff to smaller investors, but I have larger commercial clients that buy shopping centers and office buildings and apartment buildings that are like, wow, this really applies to us also, and it's a great tool for us. And I always tell, I had a guy ask me on LinkedIn one day, he's like, I own 20 buildings, is this for me? And I said, well, if you read the book, and if your accountant is doing everything that I tell them to do in this book, well, then you've got a really good accountant. And he got back to me a couple of days on the phone call. He's like, I read my book. He's like, my accountant isn't doing half of this stuff. He's like, we need to talk. So, it's a good way to start a conversation with a potential client, and it's a good way to just educate investors as to what's out there. Even if I never hear from them, I want them to have this information and save money on their taxes.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. So definitely getting into the quick rounds now. These are going to be quick questions, quick answers. You ready, sir?
Okay. Yes,
First
sir.
question. What makes you, Ted, unique? What is that differentiating factor that separates you from the next guy or the next girl? You can use your company too if you want.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that differentiates me the most is that I'm an active investor. So I'm a CPA who is also doing the exact same things that my investor clients are doing.
Good one. Second question. What was the last book that you read? What was the one thing that you picked out from that book?
Oh, the last book that I read, I was actually rereading Think and Grow Rich. I read it once a year. It's the last thing that I actually picked up. And I'm always amazed that I've probably read it 15 times. I always pick out something new, and it goes back to just keeping your goals, visualizing your goals, keeping a lot of focus on what you want. I think that's a big takeaway from that.
I bet. Yeah, that's a classic quintessential book. Last question. You've got your business. Of course, you got family. Speaking at different meetup groups across the country. What do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? Real estate actually started out as a hobby to me. I've always been a full CPA. So when I was renovating and flipping single-family houses, that literally was my hobby. Now I spend, my hobby is yoga. I go to the gym a lot. I travel quite a bit with both my wife and my kids. So those are the things that I do for fun these days.
Fantastic, fantastic. Before I let you go, Ted, what is the best place do our listeners can reach out to you? Social media or just your website. Just tell us the best place we can reach out to you.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook all the time, so I think that's a great place to reach out to me on. I'd love for everybody to connect with me on Facebook, and I put out a lot of really good tax tip information on Facebook.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Ted. I really appreciate it. It's been good to have you on the show. Hopefully, we'll get you back sometime in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it all. Have a great day, man.
You too.